Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Ask Kaveti. So, today's topic is very interesting, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you can relate to this topic as well, which is what are the implications of using foul language on social media? I'm here joined with Mr. Srinivasrao Kaveti again, and we'll be asking him some pretty good questions tonight. So, how are you doing, Mr. Kaveti?
Welcome back to Ask Kaveti episodes again. Can you speak anything in social media? And can you be punished? What is the law pertaining to US, India, and international? US Constitution, one has to understand there's a First Amendment. What is First Amendment? You have a right of expression, right of assembly. You can speak whatever you want. But there are certain restrictions for your speech. What are those restrictions? You cannot use profane and obscene language when you're expressing about somebody, either about politicians or about religious heads or about any other country or any other situation. You got to be careful because America is a beautiful country. It is the Constitution of America has given right of expression. So as in India, you have fundamental right of press, right of expression. Can you pick up a phone and record anything? Can you publish it in social media the way you want? These days when you see in social media, people are coming up with YouTube videos, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. They will do anything, whatever they want, and they publish it in social media. Guys, you got to be careful because when you utter some defamatory words or obscene words as against any politicians or as against any individuals, you're getting yourself in trouble. Will it cause you a criminal? It could even cause some criminal cases as against you. They could even sue you for civil wrong, for the defamation. You could be punished either by US law or by Indian law or under the international law also, because now it is Vasudhaiva Kutumbam, because the law has given protection under the cyber laws, under the internet laws. Now they all work together. You can't speak the way you want in social media. You got to control your tongue and your mind when you're saying something about people or about situations. These days when you see in television or in social media, people are talking about wars, people are talking about COVID, people talk about different social subjects the way they want. Because you have a camera, because you have a microphone in your hand, you can't be speaking the way you want. Of course, you have a right of expression, but there are certain checks and balances. You cannot defame anybody. You cannot use abusive language. You cannot defame anybody. If you do, if it causes an injury, there are two types of defamation. One is a slander written and spoken. If you speak, if you write, you could be punished under the civil law, under the criminal law. Under the civil law, they could sue you for damages, and under the criminal law, they could file cases as against you. It could be an offense. You could be punished. You could end up in jail. So better be careful when you're doing any videos which has got offensive languages. And we get a lot of calls from a lot of people, even from overseas politicians. They're saying, okay, there are some people are coming up with some bad language or obscene language, abusive languages. They're taking videos, sitting at home, publishing as against Indian politicians or Indian religion heads or as against religious orders, as against belief system. That could be a serious offense. They could initiate criminal cases as against you. Don't think that you're sitting in America, that law is big hands. That's called extraterritorial jurisdiction, long-arm jurisdictions. The law has got broader hands. You could be punished anywhere in the world. So you better be careful. Don't get in trouble with law. And if you get punished, you could have criminal cases, and you could also be sued in different courts of law for a civil liability. It could be in dollars or it could be in rupees. So better be careful. Keep that. There is a law. We are all working under the law, and we are living in a civilized nations. So civilized nation means either it's a democracy or any other type of governments. We work under the law. So civilization means we are civilized society. We have to be civilized as against other people. If you have an opinion, you can give your opinion, but you cannot use abusive or derogatory or obscene languages. So guys, be careful and control your mind and control your speech.
So, Mr. Kaveti, being that you have been a lawyer for over 30 years now and practicing international law at that, I would like to ask you to revisit the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution with us.
The First Amendment is the amendment which is amendment in the U.S. Constitution, which is right of expression. Right of expression means either in press or in private. You can also have right of assembly, right to profess your own religion. That's called First Amendment in America. And if you see the history of this goes back to, if you see the US Constitution, many of the US Constitution, they have taken it from the Bible and other constitutions, and from the Human Rights Declaration and the Constitution Assembly of US, they have come up with this because right of liberty, you have a liberty in this country. That's a symbol of American law. That means you have right of expression, right of assembly, right of freedom of professing religion, and there are multiple, Bill of Rights.
So, Mr. Kaveti, we see in the media a lot of the time preachers and politicians, they defame politicians and religion. Is it lawful?
Defamation means any untrue statement, you're publishing it in public. Either it could be on television, or it could be in a social media, or it could be in a press or a print or a newspaper. So defamation is an offense, and it is also a civil wrong. You could be punished under the criminal law, and you could be liable under the civil law. So using an obscene language or abusive language or defamatory language is not permitted under the law.
Many of the times now we see in social media and in YouTube or Facebook or other social media, defaming and using obscene language as against politicians and religious heads. Is it legal?
It is unlawful to use abusive or profane or defamatory languages as against public figures. The law defined that if you're defaming or using abusive language or obscene language as against private individual or public figures. A public figure means somebody who is famous. It could be a politician, it could be a film star, it could be a sportsman or some religious heads. So the law takes it very seriously when you're defaming a public figure. So guys, better be careful when you're saying a statement as against a famous person.
So what would be the punishment for publishing such remarks while abusing political and religious heads?
The punishment could be imprisonment, and depends upon which country, because if you take US, it's got a different laws. If you take India, it's got different laws, and every country has its own laws. It is stipulated in the penal law for defamation, either slanderous statements or libelous statements. And if you're looking at defamation, and if there is any injury, financial injury caused by your defamatory languages or abusive languages, when people rely on your language, when people believe your word, and if there's any infringement of any financial rights or infringement of any rights, the parties can sue you, the victim can sue you, depends upon the financial injury. So you can't quantify what would be the damage. If you're damaging a politician or a very famous company or a famous figure, it could be an unlimited damages. So you better be careful by the civil law or by the criminal law. So I can't give you a specific answers. It depends upon the facts of the case.
What are the laws in America and in India?
These are laws, as I said earlier, under the federal communication. There are certain laws in US that if you infringe the right of individuals, under the penal law, under the US penal law. Every state has got its own penal law. There's also federal laws under the Constitution. You have a cause of action under the US federal law and as well as state law. And similarly, under the Indian Penal Code in India, you have a cause of action under the Indian Penal Code, and you also have a cause of action under the Indian Constitution. For a matter of fact, people also have rights under the international conventions and treaties.
What are the international laws? Because we believe in Vasudeva Kutumbakam.
Because after COVID, you can see the whole world is becoming one platform. So that means there is a big movement in the world that they want to come with a world constitution. That means there's a parliament of religions are coming, parliament of different countries are coming together on one platform. The movement has started in America. They want to have uniform laws all over the world. I mean, it's a movement started. If that becomes a reality, that means the whole world will have one law, uniform laws. If that becomes a reality, that means the whole world will be governed, and there'll be one enforcement agency, there'll be one court which governs the laws all over the world. I mean, it's a future. We never know the way things are happening in the world. It's possibility that they could have a uniform laws all over the world. But as in today, there are no uniform laws because there are different types of governments. There's a government of democracy, government of civil society, civil laws, common laws, monarchy, different types of laws are there in the world. As on today, there is no uniformity, but there are certain human rights laws and human rights conventions to protect the political rights, religious rights, and legal rights all over the world. And you can approach the international forums for the protection. There's an international criminal court, there's an international court, ICJ in Hague. You could approach the forums, international forums, for protecting your rights under the international law.
So viewers, I hope you learned a lot today, and I want to say that please don't be involved in cyberbullying. It is not good. Whatever you say, bad words you say on social media, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, wherever, it stays on there, and it is very difficult to remove that from your records. And I would like to ask Mr. Kaveti if he has any last words or last things he wants to share with us. So Mr. Kaveti, anything you would like to say?
These videos which were coming up with an Ask Kaveti, these are all for information purposes, and sometimes it's also entertaining. And don't take this as a legal advice. And our attempt is only to educate people with the wisdom of law from my law school education in Australia, England, and America and India. And don't consider this as an attorney-client relationship. And if you have any specific questions, approach competent lawyers in your jurisdiction. And we're not trying to solicit any business through these videos or with these shows. And we're only just trying to share our information and just to educate people. And we're not, we're going to come up with new and more information with different topics in terms of national, international laws and laws pertaining to Australia, England, and America. We will touch base on political rights, cultural rights, constitutional rights, and legal rights for women, for children, and for businessmen, and for employees, and for politicians, and for religious rights. And this is an attempt to share our legal wisdom to viewers. And thanks for subscribing Mana TV International. We will come up with more shows like this. Please be tuned. Thank you very much.
So viewers, I hope you had a good time tonight with us as we talked about social media and using foul language. And I hope to see you next week, same time, same place. So don't go anywhere because I will be back with another episode of Ask Kaveti.